Kerry Kaplan joins us. He's Cosmos Sports and Entertainment President, also the General Manager of the Brampton Beast of the East Coast Hockey League. Kerry, thank you for being with us. Always great to chat with you, my friend. And Kerry, let me ask you the challenge when you were a guy, especially now with the Brampton Beast, and your company does work with various sports teams. Let's play devil's advocate for a second, and let's say sometime in the next 2 to 3 months, these leagues do start up with limited crowds. Kerry, do you think the public is going to be chomping at the bit to go into these arenas at reduced capacity?
Yeah, so first of all, great pleasure as always, Roger. Happy to talk to you. And we are living in interesting times, as they say. I think, look, I make my living, as you know, in the sports and entertainment business, and that's driven by fans coming to games and events and not just sporting events, all types of entertainment events. However, I think we're in a time where we have to protect people from themselves in a way that, I think, your question is interesting, which says, would you, the survey says, would you go to a game? I think the problem with it is there's a percentage, maybe it's 20% of people that would say, of course, I'll go to a game. I'll go to a super spreader event. I'll go to a house party without a mask. I'll go to and I think that's the challenge that I think, as sports organizations, we need to be responsible and say it doesn't matter if 20% of people would go to a Raptors game or a lacrosse game or a hockey game. If it's not safe, we as sports organizations and leagues have to say it's not an option. And I think that's where, that's where the flaw can come. There's people that go skydiving, and there's a lot of people that are going to take risks. This is a risk, but the government and the health authorities and the teams need to put health above economics in the short term, because I think we have a very bright long term. I think we get to April, we're in good shape, but we have to protect people against from themselves. So that's my thought.
Well, it's a good one. So Kerry, then let's take it a step further. So we're talking, and I think, and you're the perfect person to ask about this, because I think some of the sporting population might be, for lack of a better word, confused when they see the NHL and the NBA, and for that matter, MLB and the NFL, all continuing their schedules, all doing it with no fans, and all finding a way to get through, or limited fans, because some states, very limited fans and for NFL and MLB, but for basically with nobody in the crowds. And that equates, so it's a very different situation, Kerry, is it not, for leagues that are entirely gate revenue driven. And I think some people are still having their, don't really understand that, the OHL, the AHL, the ECHL, the Intercounty
CFL,
Baseball League, the CFL, like any league where it is absolutely paramount there are fans, why would they even entertain the thought of playing if they can't at least, and I'm going to throw it out, half fill their arenas? Come on, Kerry, 20% isn't going to cut it at the amateur level.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I'm the closest to it I am, as you know, is I'm, the good fortune of being the general manager of the Brampton Beast and the ECHL. And we want to do everything we can to play and have our fans there and be in Brampton. But, you can't operate, as you say, without fans unless you're at the very, very top level, which you have TV revenues. And I credit the NBA and NHL. I was a doubter that they would be able to pull off the bubbles successfully. I think they both did a tremendous job. But as you say, unless you're in the very top tier of sports, you're dependent on your fans. That's who you are. And again, I think, and even at that, and you said, you made a good point about going to a movie. Is it the same thing if you have 500 people in a stadium that holds 10,000 or an arena that holds 10,000, and they're wearing masks and they're social distancing and the food concessions are closed and they can't use the bathrooms in a normal context? It's not the same experience. So I think I think it's a point in time here. And again, as I said earlier, I'm very optimistic. There's lots of things on the horizon. There's great news about vaccines and rapid testing, but We're 6 months away. Today was the all-time record. I think people are fatigued, but they don't realize today was the worst day ever for COVID. Today was the worst day. It was the worst day in the U.S. It was the worst day in Ontario. So it was worse than April. And I think, you can see in the premiers and the mayors and the government, they don't want to lock things down, but I think that's where we're headed. And I think that's the responsible thing. We need some short-term pain to get to the long-term positive for sports.
Well, agreed. And I think when the short-term pain is over, I think sports comes back even bigger and better and more popular. And I think there'll be more people at concerts and movies. But we're talking about the next 6 to 8 months, and not even so much, Kerry, the next 6 to 8 months. Hey, listen, a lot can happen. Flexibility with all the vaccine news and everything else. It may be an optimistic view. But, Kerry, the NBA is going to play December 22nd.
Yeah.
The NHL is talking about January the 1st now. Is that not rushing it?
Yeah, well, I don't think, I think there's mixed opinions on leagues playing, traveling. I don't think it's been successful at all. I don't think even people say the MLB and NFL. First of all, there's been cases, but what you really don't know is how many of those players or family members infected other people. I mean, and maybe no one will ever know that. But I think the bubble phenomenon has been tremendous, and if any league or group is able to play, I'm watching the Masters this weekend. It's great, but it's in essence a bubble. There's nobody there besides camera people, and so any sports that can do that, all the power to them, and that's great for us watching TV or being online. But I think it's too ambitious to try and play with travel. You see what's happened with the QMJHL and college football. It's to me, those are train wrecks. They're start and stop and lots of cases and lots of infections. And again, I don't even know if we really appreciate the full gravity. You can see it on the faces of the healthcare workers in the hospital. They're afraid. They're nearing capacity at different places. I don't think sports should be so bold as to say we're going to ignore that. And again, we have to protect ourselves against the 20% of people that would say, yeah, I'm fine. I'm going to go to a sporting event. I think that, there's going to be a percentage of the population that would do that, but that's irresponsible.
Well, you touched on it, Kerry, and it's the fatigue that worries me in terms of it, because I saw firsthand, as we all did, but in particular in my case, in March here, and basically our station was shut down and we were sent home to do the shows, and I came back in May, but I'm still one of the few people that's back here, and I go in and out and all this, but I saw how people were reacting in March when it first came, and it was the worst day in history, and now people are saying, yeah, I'd go to a game.
Yeah.
If I had asked them that question in March, they would have said, are you out of your mind? I am afraid. I'm hiding in my basement wearing a mask. I'm not even going to go outside. Yet now it's worse, and now they're saying, yeah, I'll go to a game. Yeah, sure, why not? It's like, see, that's where the fatigue comes in, and I think that's where the danger really comes into it, Kerry, not just from sports, but in every other angle, is that, well, it's been 8 months and I haven't got it yet, so what the heck? I guess I'll go to a game. That's something that not just sports leagues, but everybody's got to be cognizant of.
Well, I think the medical professionals have been generally right on this. Because of the lockdowns in March, April, May, June, July, that's one of the primary reasons why June, July, and August was better. But there was talk about a second wave in the fall from the outset. And I think, again, I said it at the beginning, I think people are in denial. Today was worse. November is worse than March. And I think people have to, and it's not getting better. It's not going to get better in the days ahead, days and weeks ahead. I think, again, I have great optimism for April. And, if it's April, May, I think we're going to be back to the place where there's going to be full stadiums and full concerts and because I think there'll be all those things. There'll be multiple vaccines. There'll be rapid testing. I heard Ticketmaster even's coming out with a program where you could, when you get your ticket, you can identify yourself if you're, immune or have been vaccinated. So I really think for leagues like the CFL and that are coming back in the summer, I'm very optimistic. But people have to accept what's ahead in November, December. And, I don't see any other way. So I do think, I think the NBA and the NHL, it's wishful thinking, but it just seems either unrealistic, or if it does go forward, it's dangerous. The state of Florida has as far as I know, it's still 100% capacity allowed in venues, and I think that's just putting a lot of people's lives in danger.
Kerry Kaplan is with us, Cosmos Sports and Entertainment President, General Manager of the Brampton Beast. I'm Roger Lajoie. This is Sportsnet Tonight on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Glad you're along with us. Kerry, you mentioned the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and I would agree with you. That has been a total disaster. The OHL has put off its start now until February, but they've just thrown the date out of February with no schedule and no planning. Let's talk about the OHL, other hockey leagues, indoor arenas that are, and yourself included with the Brampton Beast in the East Coast Hockey League. They're going to have to make decisions soon. And, I really appreciate, I forget where I heard it, but finally, I think a reporter somewhere really challenged Bill Daly of the NHL saying, look, if you're going to play on January the 1st, it's November the 14th. Like, when is training camp? When are you going to have your tickets on sale? It's one thing to say you're going to do something, but how do you back it up? And if it's not if it's outside a bubble, and obviously it's going to be, but at the amateur level, Kerry, I mean, surely we're close to a drop dead date for these leagues of being able to. And even if you say, all right, we're going to try January 1st, who's going to sell tickets for a game on January 1st?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. The OHL and the American Hockey League have set the dates in February. I know for Brampton's perspective, we're going to make a decision in the month of November if we're able to play it all this season. And I think you're right. I think for fans, for corporate partners, I think everybody has to. And the paths seem very slim because, again, I think all those teams that you mentioned have to. The environment is to play with fans. So I think those decisions have to happen quickly. And I appreciate kicking the can down the road and trying to wait as long as I can. I wish that the situation in November was not what it is, or October, November. But I think the writing's on the wall for a lot of these things. And then, as I said earlier, do you want to have, if you do have a season, the OHL, a season with no hitting and a abbreviated schedule and changing divisions and 20% capacity, and you have to wear a mask, and we can't have entertainment in the crowd. To me, that's not an OHL game. Like, for me, again, someone that's been in the industry, that doesn't interest me. Now, it may interest somebody, but that doesn't appeal to me. Like, I think at some point you got to say this is no longer what the OHL is, and or similar groups, and you say, okay, we're gonna come back in October with a really strong regular league, and so I mean that tends to be my thinking, but I know it's hard for people to ultimately make that decision.
No, and they don't want to, and you're right. Take it down the road as far as you can. You don't have to decide tonight whether or not you're going to play in January or February. There's no question. But if you're talking about how things are trending, to use the parlance of the day, Kerry, they're trending pretty badly for any kind of crowds at all. But I guess we'll see. Let's talk about some of the other news in sports. You're well in tuned. Miami Marlins have named the first female general manager in Major League Baseball history. Congratulations to her. And Kerry, it's really, let's hope we get to a stage that this no longer becomes you need congratulations for this. That's certainly, though, a big glass ceiling breaker.
Yeah, it's tremendous. I think, the more those barriers come down, I think it's one really encouraging thing about, many parts of society. And I think it's driven by younger people. It's driven really by people that are younger generation that really don't see, and I'm generalizing here, but I find that the younger generation just doesn't see man or woman or gay or straight or black or white or anything along those lines. And I think that we're moving in the right direction. But it's a significant it's a significant step, and it's a long time coming. And I think, I think along those lines of women having significant roles in men's sports, I think that's a big barrier. And I also think, I'm optimistic of the growth of women's sports in the next 10, 20 years. I think it, or shorter than that. I really think, the Toronto Six women's hockey team are, reestablishing themselves in Toronto. And I know there's a lot of momentum towards that. So two things. I think one, tremendous. I think it's I hope it's the first such hiring of many. And I think, but I think it's just a general comment on society that you're right. It's still a big story. Maybe, I think maybe not as big a shocker as it would have been a few years ago. And, hopefully it'll become more commonplace.
Yeah, we shall see. Kim Ng, named general manager of the Miami Marlins, first woman GM in MLB history. Kerry, what's the latest in particular with the East Coast Hockey League? I know they have a unique solution and really trying to take advantage of some states south of the border that are allowing fans, and it's going to be kind of a tier 2 restart to that.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did something really creative. I think, I give Ryan Creelan, who's the commissioner of the league, a lot of credit. I mean, we must have spent, it sounds exaggerated, but I'm probably lowballing. I've probably been 100 hours on general manager calls and governor calls over the last several months about how to handle this. And to your point, there are some teams in western states or southern states. So we have teams in our league in Tulsa and Wichita and Rapid City in Florida that have more relaxed restrictions. And so the decision for our league was to allow. It turned out didn't have to be this way, but exactly half of the league, 13 teams, opted to start playing in December. And then 13 teams, Brampton and Newfoundland, the two Canadian teams included, are waiting. And some of those teams could join in January as part of a second tier. But yeah, there are 13 teams, planning to start in December. I hope they can pull it off. It's but it's a little unnerving and I know that I know some of those teams are working really hard to manage it to the best of their ability. But as we were talking about earlier, it's not. There really are no states in the U.S. that are in a great spot right now. So it's tricky. But yeah, it's a very unique model. I credit the governors in the league for coming up with it.
Do you anticipate the OHL, AHL starting anytime soon? And your thoughts on the latest news that the NHL is now kind of trying to see about pushing it up to January 1st. We've talked about the dangers in putting people in the stands, but at least in terms of those leagues' plans that you've seen, Kerry, your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, the NHL could do it with a bubble because they've done it and they have, huge TV audience. It's similar to the World Juniors that's going for it. AHL and OHL are talking about a February start, and I think it's going to be really tough. February, it's hard for them to go any later, and I appreciate the kicking the can down the road approach. But February is tough. It means training camp starts in January, and there's this whole discussion about is body checking part of it and all that. So they've got, they're it's wishful thinking, and they're making a lot of adjustments to try and get a season in February. I guess I would say I would hope they can, but I wouldn't bet my house on it.
And how about your Brampton Beast before we let you go? What is the timeline here for you to make a decision on where that franchise might be going?
We'll decide in November. I think actually we'll decide in November before the end of the month, and January 15th would be the date that we would join the second group if we did. But we have to make a decision soon, and so we'll know. I think we may be our announcement may come before almost anybody. I think we'll our goal will be to make a definitive announcement by the end of the month. Well,
best of luck either way, Kerry, and always great to have you on. Kerry Kaplan is Cosmos Sports and Entertainment President, also General Manager of the Brampton Beast of the ECHL, joins us on a regular basis on Sportsnet tonight to talk sports business news issues. Kerry, thank you. Stay safe and well. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Thanks, Roger. Take care. Thanks, Roger. Take care.